Hey guys, Parfax here, and today we've got another tier list Tuesday. All right, let's get started. So we're here and we're doing another tier list, and this is just going to be a speculative tier list on 3v3 arenas. It is the biggest update coming out. Now, this is meant to be fun, engaging. This isn't meant to throw shade at any specific weapon, and we're just going to kind of get into it. So please, if you have any suggestions in the comment section down below, please go ahead and comment down there and try not to take any of this to heart. This is just fun. It's just a way for me to engage with you guys, to see what you're thinking and to see what I'm thinking. Okay, first, we're not going to go with the fire staff. We're actually going to swap it for the life staff because we know life staff is up here in the S tier. Now, this isn't a weapon that you're going to have to use, in my opinion. But this is going to be a weapon if you have two good DPS with you. This is going to be a absolutely amazing weapon. Now, they did make some changes to heavy healing, which I believe is directly a result of the 3v3 arenas, because if heavy healing was a thing, you could essentially go two big bruisers with a heavy healer and they essentially would never be able to die. It'd be very, very hard for them to kill them. But no surprise here that life staff is going to be an S tier. I don't think it is going to be mandatory for you to have a life staff in your group. I just think that it is going to be in a very, very good weapon, and it's going to allow you to kind of outplay some scenarios where you probably shouldn't. Next, we have the fire staff, and honestly, I think the fire staff's just going to be like a solid B tier weapon. I don't think it brings a ton to the table. It's more of a kind of a poke type of gameplay. It doesn't particularly go too well into big bruisers, and I think bruisers are going to be a very big stay. It doesn't go too well into like the Blunderbuss, which I believe the Blunderbuss is going to be there. And honestly, with the bow changes, I don't know how well it goes with bow. Now, its secondary weapon is going to be a big factor whether the fire staff gets played a lot, but I think it's a good weapon. I don't think it's going to be like a weapon that you have to have in your group, but I don't think you're going to just want to cancel out of the queue because there's a person queuing up all the time with the fire staff and you keep getting paired with them. I think it's going to be a fine weapon. I just don't think it's going to be a top tier weapon. Next, we have the Ice Gauntlet. Now, before we put the Ice Gauntlet up there, the Ice Gauntlet did get some pretty big nerfs. It got not any necessarily direct nerfs, but roots and slows now from the ice shower can be dodged. So that means if you hit somebody with the root, they can dodge in place. And the slow previously, you were not allowed to dodge out of it. You still can now dodge while still slowed. Now it's going to affect how fast you dodge roll and how far you dodge roll, but it's still going to allow you to dodge roll. Now they did change some things about dodge roll so people can't be quite as roly-poly as they were before. But honestly, we're still going to put the Ice Gauntlet in the A tier. I thought previously it was going to be in B or C tier, but honestly, I played with a few Ice Gauntlet users and maybe they were really good. I even played with an Ice Gauntlet Rapier and he absolutely shredded. He was just one of the best partners for the OPR that or for the arenas that I actually had. And even though it got very heavily nerfed, it's still going to allow you to have very nice control over specific situations. It still has some great CC and does some great damage. So I think it's going to be definitely an A tier weapon. I can see a case made that it's going to drop down to the B tier, but I don't think some people are overreacting thinking this weapon is going to be like D tier, and I just don't think it's going to be there. Next, we have the Sword and Shield, and we're putting it right up here in the A tier. There's probably a case to be made that it is an S tier. The only thing that I will say about this is if you do have a coordinated group, it is a lot harder for the Sword and Shield to really get their combos off. We were fighting some OPR or some 3v3s, and we were going against a couple pretty good Sword and Shield users. But what we would do is we'd wait for one person to kind of get engaged on, and then the other two people would then counter engage the person that has engaged. And also, when you're doing this Sword and Shield combo, you have to be on their side very coordinated as well, because if another teammate, just even a life staff user, is trying to shoot you with their life staff, and they hit the person that you've stunned, you can get out of it. Now in live, we're getting a lot more pieces of freedom. I specifically am going to have 4 pieces of freedom, so this is going to help out a lot when it comes to specifically the Sword and Shield. But it's going to be definitely A tier, but it's not going to be S tier in my opinion. And if you have too many Sword and Shield users just trying to do one-shot combos on you, just go heavier armor. Next we probably have is what's going to be the most controversial weapon in this list, and it is the bow. Now, I know a lot of you think that this bow is super oppressive and OP, and then a lot of you think that it should be down in the D category. So when I have this large gap between where people think the one weapon is, it's high and it's low, I kind of put it somewhere in the middle, and we're going to honestly put it in the B tier. Now, I can honestly say, for me, I probably would edge it towards the A tier, kind of in the Ice Gauntlet, but honestly, I don't think it's quite as good as the Sword and Shield. I don't think it's quite as good as the Ice Gauntlet. So we're going to kind of put it in the B tier here with the Fire Staff. It kind of does the same thing. It does have a few things going for it. It does have a little bit more pop than the Fire Staff, especially with the change to the hitbox. You can run something like Splinter Shot if you want to. The penetrating shot still hits really hard. You can even hit rain of arrows behind the pillar, because a lot of times the healers will like to stay behind the pillar. And if you position your rain of arrows correctly, you can pop them while they're behind the pillar. So we'll see. I think it's an okay weapon. I've had some pretty good success with it on the PTR, and we're going to be trying it out once the 3v3 goes live. But we're going to be pairing it with a different weapon than I normally do, and I think it is going to be very, very good, especially that weapon specifically. Musket, easy D. Musket, I've seen a bunch of people run it, and honestly, I think it's just okay. Like, I haven't seen it do any good. Maybe before, when they had the pillar change, you could pop some people right off the bat and maybe get them pretty low, maybe get a kill. But honestly, Musket is just not going to be very good in there. There's no way to stay too far back. Cutting is a lot harder inside the arena than it is actually in the open world, and it's just not that good. Next, we have the Blunderbuss, the one-shot god itself, and we're going to put it, it's definitely either A or S. I know most of you would put it up in the S, so we're going to slap it up here in the S tier. Now, like I said, if you were getting one shot by these too much, then you just go heavier armor. If the Blunderbuss, it can't one shot you, then it's honestly not that effective. Its basic attacks do a decent amount of damage, but a lot of times with a Blunderbuss user, if you can somehow block the initial charge from the Sword and Shield, which is a lot harder on some classes than others, but also if they don't one shot you, they've basically blown at least about 5 cooldowns, and they don't do anything. They're kind of a sitting duck at this point. They just run away for the most part. They'll get some basic shots off, but they're going to be so close that you can kind of nuke them down. And if they're going the one-shot build, they're going to be going with light armor. And if you didn't know, because they're going to be in light armor when they are actually on their Blunderbuss bar, they are very, very squishy. So as soon as they swap to that Blunderbuss, you know, counteract them. If that person has jumped on your teammate, hit them down with your bows, your Fire Staff, your Ice Gauntlets, jump in there with your Great Axe Warhammer, and these guys are going to go down pretty quickly. But if you do not catch it, these Blunderbuss will absolutely annihilate you. Now, I actually think that the Blunderbuss going a little bit more bruiser is going to be a little bit better in the 3v3 arenas. We'll see how that plays out, but I think it is where you guys, I would put it in the A tier, but I know you guys would want me to put it in the S tier, so we're going to slap it up there in the S tier. Next, we have the Warhammer, and the Warhammer we're going to put probably up here in the A tier. I don't think it's particularly oppressive. I don't think it's particularly great, like S tier. It's really close to the Ice Gauntlet. I think it's going to be decent just because the Warhammer has a lot of CCs. Now, they did change how we get diminishing returns with CC, but if you have some coordination and you hit a 1 or 2 CCs with the Warhammer, your teammate's going to be able to follow up and probably get the kill most of the time. So I think it's A tier. I definitely could see it maybe going down to B tier, but if you pair it with something with, pair it with something like the Great Axe, it is going to absolutely shred. So yes, we're going to put it up here in the A tier, but I can honestly see it somewhere probably in between A and B tier. Next, we have the Hatchet. We're going to put the Hatchet probably in the B tier. Honestly, the Hatchet's not bad. There's actually a little bit of advantage that the Hatchet has over a couple other classes, and that is if you get into this large stalemate at the very end and the fire starts covering the field, if you still have your Defy Death up, you can still get a couple extra seconds from your Defy Death while the fire's ticking. Now, I know it's very small case scenario, but honestly, I don't think the Hatchet's bad. I've seen some people do some pretty good work with it. I don't think it is overly oppressive. I don't think it is absolutely crazy, but its overall damage output is actually pretty good. So we're going to put it right solidly in the B tier. Next, we have the Great Axe, and we're definitely going to put it in the A tier. It's kind of in between AS. I can definitely see it being up in the S tier. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to try to run the normal build, which I believe is going to be Charge, Maelstrom, and Gravity Well, but I honestly think the better build is going to be Gravity Well, Maelstrom, and Reap, or Gravity Well, Reap, and Charge. The reason for this is because we're not doing big AoE claps like in Wars or in OPRs, we're going to be trying to catch people, and that's what the Great Axe is going to do. It's going to be your frontline bruiser. Some people are going to go light armor, but it's really going to be that catch tool. They nerfed light armor significantly on the PTR. The dodge when you dodge in light armor doesn't speed you up anymore, so these bruisers are going to be able to catch you with relative ease now, and especially if you have something like Reap and Gravity Well, even though you're going to be able to dodge out of Gravity Well when it's working properly. It is going to be a tool that is going to be absolutely devastating. And if you can get that Reap to try to catch that healer, it's going to be absolutely crazy. I think Reap is going to see a little bit of extra play here in the 3v3 arenas. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I definitely think the Great Axe is going to be an A/S tier weapon. Next, we have the Rapier, and we're going to put it in the C category. I tried the Rapier a lot with the bow, and what I found was there's not a lot of places to kite depending on the comp. Now, if we run into a comp that is healer double bruiser, then yes, maybe the Rapier is going to be a better weapon than, let's say, like the spear for bow, or for maybe mage. Maybe instead of going Ice Gauntlet Fire Staff, maybe you're going Fire Staff Rapier, Ice Gauntlet Rapier. That might be a viable option against double melee. Because we have got the nerf to light armor, I think the Rapier is going to see a little bit more play than it has previously. But like I said, the problem is when they have a ranged comp, or when they have at least one ranged person, typically what happens is if they are running your probably typical build is going to be one ranged, one melee, one healer. The healer is going to stay back, maybe behind the pillar or kind of hanging back. The ranged person's going to play out in the open as long as you guys are on the aggressive. And then the melee person's going to wrap around the side to flush you out of the back. Now, if you stay back there and, fight with the melee person, that's kind of where the melee wants to be. The ranged person can wrap around to the side to get a nice little peek area for where you guys are fighting. And if you use the Rapier to get away from the melee, what you then do is you're going around the pillar, which then gives you in line of sight of the ranged person. So I don't think the Rapier is going to be that good. You're going to see some comps that it might be very good against, but for the most part, I think the Rapier is going to be more of a sub-tier weapon and not used that much at 3v3. People are going to try it because some people are running right now, especially like Lifestaff Rapier. But I think what you're going to find is you're going to want a little bit more utility. And the last weapon is my utility weapon for bow. I know it's not that uncommon to see bow spear, but honestly, when I swapped a spear over Rapier, my wins started going through the roof because this weapon is really good and we are putting it solidly in the A tier. Now, personally, I'm probably more of leaning towards the S tier for the spear, which I know it's probably not S tier, but for me personally, it felt like an S tier weapon while using it. But that's because I think it paired so well with what I was doing. So we are going to put it in the A tier. Oh, hold on. Move it down. Here in the A tier, and here's why. The spear itself has so much high base damage. It is one of the few weapons that can really put so much pressure on the healer that you can just straight kill them through their heals. There's not a lot of weapons that put so much consistent damage on the target that allows them to do that. When I was playing the bow, what I found was there'll be some instances where I have to nuke down one specific person, especially the healer, and the bow just doesn't really have it unless you can do an animation cancel pen shot with your basic attack. And maybe like why they're poisoned. It's really hard for the bow to instantly knock somebody out. And I think the spear gives you that super consistent pressure. You have so high DPS on the target, you almost PvE them out of the game. The spear also has a lot of CC. You can run it a bunch of different ways. You can run the triple CC comp, which I don't think is going to be the best. What I think is going to be the best is running Vault Kick, Sweep, and Perforate. Now, Perforate, you do have to watch. You can get in some very sticky situations since you cannot cancel it. But if you can get the Perforate off, especially, it's so great on healers because a lot of times they don't have, the most thing they can do is riposte you and then run away typically. So if you can bait out the riposte, then you can give them a Perforate. You've put a 30% rend on them and you've done a lot of damage to them. And I think it is a absolutely fantastic weapon for 3v3s. And I think once you start getting to see people fleshed out, you're going to start seeing spear, not only with bow, you're going to start seeing it with like spear, sword, and shield again. I think you're going to see maybe even spear, great axe, spear, hatchet. You're going to start seeing a little bit more spear because I think honestly, the spear is probably the weapon that I was one of the lowest, not lowest, I wasn't very low on it, but it surprised me at how well I thought the spear did in the 3v3 arenas. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of it. Let me know what you think of the Musket and the Rapier specifically. They're pretty low on the list. Now, can you use both of these? Yes. You don't, right now, there's not going to be ranked. Yeah, they technically have ranks, but you're not going to go down in rank. You can only go up. So feel free to use whatever you want. You can play whatever you want. Do any type of builds. Do funny, crazy builds. One of my favorite builds, one of my healers I was running with was running Life Staff Spear, and it was absolutely hilarious. He ended up getting a kill with Javelin, and I absolutely lost it. It was so funny. He just kept javelin people in the back as I was trying to catch him, or I was trying to hit him with a bow. It was absolutely fantastic. Try whatever build you want to do. I've seen Life Staff Ice Gauntlet, Life Staff Spear. You know, you can see there was a lot of Fire Staff, Blunderbuss. You're going to see a lot of different things. Just have fun with it. This video was meant to be fun and engaging, and just to open up some comments. Let me see what you guys think. This is kind of where I think, mixed with a little bit of what I think you guys think is going to be a 3v3 tier list. Let me know in the comment section down below where I went right and where I went wrong. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.